Final score, Duke 68, Michigan 63, and what was a 1-versus-2 matchup, according to the bracket preview and the top 25, and won. The Blue Devils snapped Michigan's 11-game winning streak. Cameron Boozer, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, big buckets in the final couple of minutes. I saw you talking about it on CBS Sports HQ. What's the main takeaway, Norlander, from Duke's big win in D.C.?
I think my main takeaway is that this was a good result for college basketball. It was a good result for college basketball because had Michigan won, I saw the Wolverines do what they did at Mackey just a few days prior. Had Michigan won, and Michigan won with some room to reach, then it would have been on a tier to itself, I think fairly evaluated as such. And that would have been a fine storyline, and we would have led the pod all the same with it. But now we've got this, and this is our poll to start the show. We've got this 3-team race. And that's not to say that the teams underneath that are populating the 2-line and the 3-line, because they can get involved in this for sure. But who is the best team in college basketball? We're entering the final week of February, and we now know who the projected number 1 seed is. That's that number 1 overall seed. That is Duke. It has earned this opportunity. It was Michigan and then Duke. The committee showed that to us. Every reasonable bracket forecaster would agree. Now they have identical records. And Duke has won on a neutral against Michigan. It's Duke. But is Duke the actual best team? Michigan is actually still number 1 at Ken Pom. Arizona went on the road and won against Houston. We're going to get there in just a few. So I think that's a wonderful development. That's my biggest takeaway, is that Duke winning, period, their final result, was a good thing to throw even more uncertainty heading into March, who the best team in the country is. That was wonderful. As for the actual game from my end, I was surprised by how easy it was to score to start this game. They were filling it up quickly, and I thought, because these are 2 top 5 defenses. In fact, Michigan was number 1 in defensive efficiency going into the game, still is as a result of what wound up being a relatively low-scoring 68-63 final, and then the defenses started taking over. Not having Cadeau be effective, I thought, was the second most important factor in the game. When we were previewing on HQ, I said Duke's capability, literally like around the rim at both ends of the floor, could it be successful at second chance opportunities? Could it limit Michigan's and Adai-Mara and Lendenborg and Morez Johnson, because they can just be magnets to the rim in a variety of different ways, different angles, and it did. The final numbers on the boards: Michigan had 8 second offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities. Duke had 13 defensive rebounds. Michigan 20. Duke 28 for the game. Duke grabbed well over half the opportunities on both ends when you tally it all up, and winning the rebound percentage battle, combined with Cadeau hit his only 3 of the game, final maybe 3.5 to go. GP finished 1 of 6 from deep. Lendenborg had some good moments, but he started better than he finished for the most part. I know he also hit a big 3. When he hit the 3 to cut it to 1, it felt like, okay, can we really get this thing that's going to be decided in the final possession? It didn't wind up going that way. It was a close game, good game, wonderful for the sport, neutral site. We always want these home and homes, but I actually do like this. And and my expectation in just talking to coaches, event organizers, is we had three notable ones this year. We had Baylor, Louisville, Virginia, Ohio State last week, and then Duke, Michigan. I think we'll get 5 or 6 at least next season. That's just a great change of pace for college basketball, and all the buildup and all the hype surrounding this one. I loved it. I have not mentioned Boozer yet. I'm kind of setting you up on a tee. You can go big time on Boozer, who didn't even have his best game, but yet again came through when he needed. Your takeaways on the Blue Devils getting it done.
Well, first on the, I love the non-league showdown in February. I wish we'd get more of these. They're just sort of fun, if only because they're different. Yeah. I will acknowledge that it did pop in DC. It was good. Courtside seats were going for, reportedly, I mean, I didn't check the prices myself, but this is what I read according to the Associated Press. Courtside seats were going for as high as $6,000. Upper deck tickets were going for $600 in some cases. Again, you can confirm that on your own, but I read it straight from the Associated Press. So it was a great scene, but I don't like it when people take great neutral court scenes and say, well, wasn't that great? As if it wouldn't have been just as great. And by just as great, I mean actually better if it were in Cameron Indoor or at Chrysler. So yeah, it was great in DC. I would prefer it on campus, but whatever. I'm just glad we got it.
But yeah, as you know, they intentionally wanted this. So
Oh, I
when
know, I
you're
know.
an Elite Eight game, literally a month from now, this is still, it's right there at forefront of their mind. Theoretically speaking, because it's not a league, it's not a conference tournament game where you're playing. This is a non-conference opponent. I'm just clearing it up for our audience.
Of course, I know. Obviously, they want to do it this way, which is why they do it. I just would always prefer to have home and homes instead of neutral courts. But I'm not going to complain. I'm just glad we got the game. It was a fun way to spend a Saturday night. The Cadeau three, the one that he made, that came right after Boozer buried a three with 1:55 left to turn a one possession game into a 6-point game.
Yep.
Then Cadeau
I thought that's when they won the game, by the way.
Yeah, I thought that was it. It's
in the
done.
moment, I was like, Michigan's not going to do this.
Right. Okay. So then Cadeau comes down, bangs home that three, one possession game again, and then Boozer goes right back down, and that's when they get the goaltending call on a Mara,
which I thought was accurate. Now, super close.
It's super close, but it looked goaltending. It live.
It looked to me like it was just barely coming down. Yes.
Live. It looked like goaltending. I completely understand why Dusty challenges it. I mean, like, why not at that point? But I was not surprised to see that the goaltending call was confirmed. And that was basically it. Once that bucket counts, it's 66-61, and Michigan finished with 63, final score 68-63. So fun game, even if it wasn't the prettiest of games. Duke was up 35-33 at the half and then never trailed for a second in the second half. Boozer, it wasn't his most productive game, but like when it was time to go get buckets and time to like, hey, can you go win this for us? Make a three. Now bounce it, get into the paint, finish in there. I mean, he was just making winning basketball plays. And he and Shire did the post-game interview on television together, and you can just see how much Jon thinks about him. And then I liked it the way Jon answered this question. He was asked, like, what did you learn about your team tonight? And he was like, honestly, not much. Point being, like, I know who we are. I know we're good. And it just sort of stuck with me because on Friday I was doing HQ and we were previewing Duke, Michigan. And in the rundown, I was going to get asked, there was a question in there about, does Jon Shire need to do this to, show he can win the big game? We never got to the question, probably because I was rambling just like this. And my answer was going to be, no, like Jon Shire's won big games. He's been in a Final Four. He's won conference tournament championships. He's won Duke, North Carolina games. He is a young coach, but he is an incredibly successful young coach in this sport. And he doesn't have anything to prove to me, and he doesn't, and his team doesn't seem to have anything to prove to him. He knows he's got, just like last year, he knew, I think by this time, way earlier probably, that he had a team good enough to win the national championship. They just didn't do it. Same thing right now. They've got a team good enough to win the national championship, and we'll see if they can do it.
Boozer, again, just shows up for the moment. He had 4 fouls. He goes out. Duke doesn't take on water. Very impressive. I thought you got good play out of Gungba, who's just got his hands full with Mara, obviously there. And Mara was the only Wolverine who wound up in foul trouble. Boozer as well. And I thought it was a key moment, like a key development for Duke to be against a really good team on a neutral site, NCAA tournament type atmosphere. Then you lose by far your best player for minutes at a time. I actually thought it even helped him all the more because we had some stoppages. So if he really needed a real breather, he got that, in addition to the fact that he needed to sit for 4+ minutes of game time. Then he comes back in, fresh legs, ready to go, attacks. He's so hard to contain and gets it done. His final stat line, 18 points, 7 assists, 10 rebounds. Flirted, 2 freshman studs, came extremely close to a triple-double, Devonta being the other. But yeah, a wonderful performance by Duke, 25-2. Michigan, 25-2. Arizona, we'll get to them, 25-2. So we've got this at the top of college hoops right now. A really, really fun race developing. And this is my reminder to everyone that Duke is quite literally 2 possessions and essentially 2.5 seconds away from being undefeated at this point. So as capable as any team in the country at winning a national championship, and for Shire to have brought in, the talent he brought in, amazing class, obviously. And Boozer he really is just as dependable of a winning player as a freshman as we've like ever seen. Like he barely lost it all in high school, continues to get it done here. And the way that he can just take all this on and it just doesn't seem to rattle him. He's like such a different player than Flag. But it's super impressive by Duke. So congrats to the Blue Devils for getting that done and in the process taking over the number 1 overall seed. They've got I guess they've got 3 potentially tough games remaining. They're at Notre Dame Tuesday. I wouldn't count that. Home to Virginia. Wahoos are looking wonderful. At NC State. Okay, we'll see. Could be feisty there. And then host Carolina in the return game, where I think the hope is that Caleb Wilson will be able to be back for that one. But good on Duke for getting it done. Meanwhile, Michigan, it's got home against Minnesota, and then Friday it goes and takes on Illinois. That is another battle between 2 top 5 KenPom teams.
Yeah, like you said, Duke Tuesday, Notre Dame on the road, Michigan up next for them, Minnesota at home. That was one top 5 matchup we got on Saturday.